I'm Haley from Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., a podcast member of the GonnaGeek Network, just like the one you're listening to now. The opinions expressed are those of each individual. Check out all the other podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com and get ready because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
This is it. The part of your week where you get to put your headphones on, relax, and listen to a bunch of geeks geek out about geeky things. They're witty.
He loves him some Katy Perry because she kissed a girl and she liked it.
They're crazy.
I like Nickelback personally, but, I'm the fuddy-duddy who likes episode 1.
And sometimes they leave you wondering, what the f***?
I'm pretty sure that here we were starting the hashtag movement, Bring Back Slave Ferrell.
GonnaGeek Productions presents the official GonnaGeek.com show.
Hello and welcome to episode 192 of the official GonnaGeek.com show. My name is Jondrew, and with me, of course, is Chris Ferrell. I'm Batman. And we have reunited with us. He has returned. That's right. Unfortunately, the Rebel is gone, but Stargate Pioneer, the second, is back.
The second? That means I'm my own son, then. If I'm Stargate Pioneer the second, so that's pretty good. Hey, by the way, Steven, thank you for being so energetic during the intros to our shows.
There's no energy from me at all. I'm not an energetic guy at all. In fact, I might just sit here and go for a nap today.
Steven, are you saying you're low energy like one Cody Goff?
That's true,
He's
actually.
He's very low energy, that man.
He is.
You need to pause the podcast right now, and you need to drive down to Timmy Hortons, and you need to get yourself a cup of coffee.
Doesn't count when it's full of whiskey.
I think that good Canadian whiskey, too.
Crown Royal.
Oh man, by the way, for you audio geeks, my DBX 286 was totally gating that, so it didn't really work at all. It was like cutting in and out. But we are here today with another episode of your favorite GonnaGeek.com show. That's right, this is your favorite show called the GonnaGeek.com show. And we are going to talk today about a bunch of geeky topics. But if you are saying to yourself right now, Steven, Chris, SP, you three are always wrong, and I'm sick and tired of it. What you need is somebody to come into that fourth seat who is used to putting you guys in place, has a lot of experience, especially with that Stargate Pioneer. Well, guess what? You're in luck today because we do indeed have Haley from the GonnaGeek Network joining us today. Hello, Haley.
Hi. So I was going to get a fake beard to wear when I showed up on the podcast, but then Stargate Pioneer shaved, so it was less effective.
You would have been okay because then he really would have been the odd person out and it would have been even better.
See, what we're doing now is we're just keeping all you barefaced people below us. The bearded people are on top right now. Audio listener, we're in the quad box right now with Steve and I in the top two squares. So the bearded master race up at the top now.
Yeah.
See, Haley, if you really wanted to be like me, you would have gotten a light and you would have shined it right at your face. And the shining...
Nope, I like the backlight from the side. I think it's a good look.
That's a great time to mention, by the way. If you are watching us on the video side of things, we do have an audio companion that we do also put out if you want to listen to us in the car. If you've ever had like that desire to go and crash your car because you're listening to something so funny, subscribe to this show because, we'll do that. Or if you are listening to us right now and you're like, you know what? That Steven Jondrew voice, man, that's sexy. I wonder what he looks like. Well, you can check out the video companion at youtube.com/GonnaGeek. But trust me, I am not sexy at all. So you'll be very disappointed.
And he knows it, to crib a phrase from the song.
All right, Haley. So before we move on to the show, let's give you a moment here to talk all about yourself. Tell everybody what your backstory is here today.
I'm a geek of many years, and I found my home on the GonnaGeek Network, doing many, many podcasts. Right now, you can hear me on Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. with that guy who's always wrong. We talk about Marvel stuff there. You can hear me on Crimson Comet, where we talk about The Flash and other DC stuff if it happens to interest us that week. And you can hear me on Gallifrey Public Radio, where I talk about Doctor Who.
Well, thank you for talking all about yourself there, Haley. And I just want to say that Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. would not be the same without you, because I agree. I think that more often than not, SP is wrong. And somebody's got to be around to put him in his place.
Well, if I'm wrong so much, people actually return to listen to the show, so they must like it. They must actually agree with me.
He does it on purpose because it makes the listener feel smarter.
Okay, so while these two are fighting or hugging or making up or whatever, I want to take a moment here to talk about something super exciting that we've got going on, which is that we have a brand new member of the GonnaGeek network. Isn't that right, Stargate Pioneer?
Yeah, we have this great podcast called the Operation Pugcast, and they can be found now at GonnaGeek.com. They just released their first episode. You should run, not walk, but run to GonnaGeek.com, see the post, and download their episode and have a lot of geeky fun. They talk about video games, tech news, pop culture, and they are unique because they produce a web cartoon.
That is awesome. You know, one of the best things about web cartoons is that they are cartoons on the web.
That is a thing about web cartoons.
That was very well thought out.
No, seriously, welcome, folks, to the GonnaGeek Network. We're very happy to have you, and I love seeing this network expanding. You know, back when I started GonnaGeek.com, I didn't honestly know where it was going to go. I didn't know it was going to end up being the big podcast network it is now. I didn't know I was going to have GonnaGeek merch or stuff like that. I had no idea, and it's the people. It's the people of the network that has made it what it is, and it's a lot of fun. And you know, while I may have started the website, I gotta say, it is all about the people. So welcome to this community. We're very happy to have you. It is well overdue to get you on here. I know it took us a little bit to get you all set up, but welcome aboard.
You know that Christmas movie that plays, which is not a really Christmas movie, with Jimmy Stewart, and you know, the bell rings, and every time an angel gets its wings, the bell rings. You know that movie, right?
No, I'm not familiar with it. Could you please recite it for me word for word?
I'm sure all of us could probably do that. Well, anyway, my analogy is that on the GonnaGeek.com network, whenever there's a new podcast, Steven has to put a new microphone back on his stand.
Are you seriously going to do
like
that to me right now? I'm looking. I have like 100 microphones in here, and they're all behind the backdrop. Like, can I compromise for now and put like a mic foam up there? Because I can at least do that. I've got a mic foam honorary.
Operation Pugcast, your symbol is now a mic foam.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and move into our news. Here we go. This news point here is much bigger than what I had anticipated it to be. That's right. If you have been living under a rock for the last few days, you may not be aware, but there is a massive ransomware attack going on, primarily in Europe, but it is expanding. And ransomware, if you're not familiar with that, is essentially a virus that goes in and it encrypts your files, and then they demand money to get your files back. And this is the whole ploy, is that you send them money in this anonymous method where they can't be tracked and all this other stuff. And that's what they want to do. So they deliver on it. It's not like a virus where it like a traditional virus where it's just there to destroy your data. No, they're there trying to get you to pay them. And of course, they're going to deliver if you pay them, because otherwise there would nobody would ever pay the ransom. So that's what a ransomware is. And yes, there is this ransomware out there right now. And it has been this massive outbreak, and it's taken over government machines, healthcare machines, all these other machines in Europe, and it's not good. It came out this past Friday, and a lot of people were vulnerable to it. Why? Because they were still using Windows XP. That's right. I know. We've heard about a lot of this. We've heard before about how Windows XP is long discontinued. Yes, it is discontinued, but a lot of corporate people still use it because all of their stuff works with it and they're too lazy to move on. This is a great example on why that's not a very good practice. Now, there's actually the interesting thing about it is that there has actually been an update for XP because of it, even though XP is technically end of life. Because of the nature of this, there's actually been a patch that's been created for this to close that down. But doesn't matter. Once you're encrypted, you're encrypted. You can't get that back unless you pay the money. There's just no way to do it unless, of course, you have backups. Now, here's one of the interesting things about it. This actually came at a very, very good time, relatively speaking, because it hit on a Friday. And what happens with all of these government machines on Friday at 4 o'clock? They stop
Update time.
Exactly. They stop getting used. It's time to go home for the weekend. So the spread kind of was kept at bay until today when we're recording this on Monday. And that was just because nobody was there to go, oh, open attachment. So it was actually not bad timing. Well, here's the other interesting side of this whole ransomware thing. Part of it was actually foiled because the people who created it accidentally used the wrong domain. So you know how you enter into your website www.GonnaGeek.com or www.geeks.live. That's the domain. And apparently one of these domains that was programmed in there was not actually registered. So somebody in the IT world came across this and was like, wait a minute, this domain's not registered. I could register it and then end up controlling it, and who knows what I can do from there. And the side effect was that there was, in the software, there was this sort of callback that if there ended up being any form of government intervention, it would end up sort of sandboxing itself to kind of stop the spread so that the government couldn't essentially do that. And that's what happened, was all of these different versions of it that were trying to hit this domain were going, wait a minute, we've been compromised. The software has been compromised. And so we will take ourselves down. And basically, it just disrupted it for a bit. Now, of course, it's Monday and it's been a full work day and it's back in full swing because everybody's opening up this file without paying attention. And yeah, it's a very, very, very bad thing right now. It's a great reminder of ransomware. Ransomware is such a big thing right now because it's a way that these bad people can make money off of your data. So, ransomware. Before we actually talk about the topic there, I want to just take a quick moment here to highlight ways that you should protect yourself, because I don't want to move into the news discussion until I highlight this. And number one, don't open things that you don't know about. Just be smart. Like, do not open things you don't know about.
Where's your sense of adventure, Steven? Come on. I'd like to live dangerously.
Number two, update your Windows. And if you're using XP, that's what I mean. Get off of XP, okay? Get off of XP now. I don't want you to listen to the rest of the show. I want you to stop listening to this episode right now and go buy yourself a copy of a modern version of Windows and go do that right now.
Legally, buy.
Right. Don't do what China did and get, bootleg copies because they couldn't get the security patch.
Yes.
It boggles my mind that anybody is actually still operating XP, because on one of my machines, which is attached to my entertainment center in my workout room, when I tried to boot it up after XP was discontinued, it said, "Oh, so sorry, we can't update this. You need to buy a new computer." It literally would not let me log in. So I don't know how these people are operating XP.
Yeah.
Well, they're
huge
elite
enterprise
hacksaws.
contracts. That's how.
Yeah, so do that. And third, back up your damn data. Back it up, because if you are in a situation and you're being told you need to pay me money to get your data back, and you're like, or I'll format my system and go get my backup that's sitting on my shelf over there, that's the better option. So, audio listener, Chris is actually holding up his drive right now. My drive is, again, behind my backdrop. But this is a huge thing that I think a lot of people underestimate, is that anything that's connected to your computer could potentially be infected. Potentially. So having an actual external drive with your data on there is really good, because if you just unplug it, you know that it's protected. So I just wanted to quickly talk about those few things before we actually dissect this article. Now, again, this is insane how big this this blew up on Friday and again really evolved today. There was a lot more information. I'm going to turn it over to you first, SB, because I know you actually dug up an interesting article today about this.
I did. I found it through, I believe it was CNN, but it linked back to this guy's blog who's actually a security professional, and he does this for a living. Matter of fact, he says he registers literally thousands of domains every year to thwart issues like this with domains that these viruses are pointing to, and it doesn't happen. So the particular technique is known as sinkholing. So all these computers were throwing back to a particular domain that didn't exist. Basically, nobody had purchased it. So he purchased it. And the interesting thing was when he turned it on live, he thought he had activated the virus on everybody's computer. So he thought he had encrypted everybody's computer. So he's, for 15 minutes worldwide, sweating it out, thinking he had locked millions of computers of data. He didn't. What it did is it pointed back to that particular domain, which had nothing to do with the virus, and it was called Sinkhold, and it stopped right there. That doesn't mean that the virus isn't still out there and isn't still prevailing. It doesn't mean that the code can't be quickly modified to choose another domain or get rid of the sinkhole, but that's how this WannaCry was actually stopped, at least intermittently. So if you have not been infected and you are running an old version of the operating system, or you don't have any security protection, do all of that right now before this starts up again, because I guarantee you it will start up again, because this was based on the NSA crypto or hacking tools that were released to the web, to the dark web a few months ago. I guarantee you this is going to start happening more and more. If they ever find this guy or group or gal that did this WannaCry virus, they're in a lot of trouble, but the damage is done. So you got to go with what you got to go with.
And guys, for the love of everything, please do not be one of those people that are like, I'm on a Mac, so I'm okay. If you're on a Mac, you're still just as vulnerable to these kind of attacks. You're vulnerable to viruses, things like that. You'd be surprised how many educated people I've heard say, well, I'm on a Mac, so I'm okay. And I go, no, you're not. It just didn't used to be worthwhile to try and hack Macs. And now it actually is. So protect yourself. You do need antivirus. You do need firewalls. You do need to be smart about what kind of attachments you open. Just because it says freeporn.docx doesn't mean you should open it. Now, if it's freeporn.mp4, go ahead and open it.
Are you talking from experience here, Chris?
No, I am not. Wink.
So I got,
but if it's freeporn.rar, it's fine, right?
Oh, hell yeah.
okay. So I gotta say that, yeah, always keep your antivirus up to date. Scan it. Just be careful. Be super careful. And really, if you don't know what it is, don't open it. It's just not a good idea. And it's funny, you mentioned the Mac thing. I couldn't resist. There was a local radio station that somebody went and they had posted about. I think it was actually about this. It was about this. They posted, and someone said the best solution is just not to use Windows. To which I just replied 3 immediate links from like the last 10 days with Mac viruses, and I left it at that. And then
maybe they use Linux.
Could very well be. But Linux is also, if enough people went over to there, that's also not going to be safe. So there's always ways. Now,
just use Windows 3.1. You'll be safe.
There you go.
Well, there are all those new operating systems meant to optimize older machines out there as well. So I don't know if those are susceptible to viruses or not, but my guess is yes, because I don't think they're patched very much, and they're probably simple operating systems in order to speed up the system, but I actually don't know. So if you, listener, know if those new operating systems that are supposed to work light on your like netbook or older PC, which might be running XP, if you have any news on that, I'd be curious to hear what it is.
All right, before we go off this, Haley, I want to give you a turn here to talk all about this. I know you've been biting your tongue waiting to talk.
We got the email about it this morning at work too. Really on the ball, making sure we got it by, mid to late morning about this. And they basically said, don't open attachments from people you don't know. even if it's somebody you do know, if it's not an attachment you're expecting, maybe verify that they actually are the one that sent this to you. And yeah, just don't do dumb things, I think, is the most important thing to take away from this.
That's fair.
Yeah, it's like all of those Facebook things where people are like, Costco's giving away $1,000 gift card every hour. Share.
It's like when you go home to your parents and they're like, yeah, I clicked on this thing for free coupons and now I've got 8 toolbars on my browser.
Those toolbars help me find things on the internet. They're the greatest thing ever.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that. I can only use half my screen.
That's how I roll, man.
Since we've gone there, I have to say, hi, Mom, don't click that link that just popped up.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to our next news point here, which I think this is actually a question we've all been wondering is does NASA really do anything?
That is a good question. I think they are doing things. I think they're just being a lot safer than SpaceX and Elon Musk. We talked about it before. And we've also talked about the fact that we didn't know exactly where NASA was going to go underneath the Trump administration. We don't really have a NASA administrator right now. We don't really have an administrative space policy. But what we do know is that the Trump administration worked together with Robert Lightfoot, who is the NASA's acting administrator, and they came up with a plan on their next crewed launch vehicle and capsule dates for flights. So the first flight of NASA's next generation heavy lift rocket, which is called the Space Launch System, or short for SLS, is now scheduled for, wait for it, 2019, and will not include a human crew, NASA officials said back on May 12th. And this is a little bit disappointing because we know that both SpaceX and NASA wanted to try to recreate the Apollo 8 flight around the moon around that anniversary time. So that was December 19th, Christmas time, really, 1968. So it's coming up on 2018. You had that nice little anniversary and they wanted to recreate it again. Well, that's not going to happen because the first flight unmanned will happen in 2019, not 2018. So Robert Lightfoot said during a news conference back on May 12th that based on the results of this internal evaluation, because they did an internal evaluation, a crewed flight would be, quote unquote, technically feasible, but the agency will proceed with its initial plan to make the rocket's first flight uncrewed. I think that is a wise decision, by the way. The internal evaluation really affirmed that the baseline plan that they had in place was the best way for us to go. We had a good handle on how that uncrewed mission will actually help the SLS be a safer mission when we actually put crew up there. It's all about safety. Guys, would you want to get on an untested rocket for its first flight? Haley, would you do that?
Maybe. I want to go to space real bad. I might.
It depends. Did you just double dare me or did you double dog dare me to do it? Because if it's double dog dare, I have no choice. I have to do it.
Yep.
See, for me, it's an obvious no, because I don't know that I would have any feet going on there, because you said that guy's name was Robert Liefeld, right?
Lightfoot.
Oh, sorry.
You know, like Gordon Lightfoot with the Edmund Fitzgerald.
That was
Did
a comic
just
book.
Make a Rob Liefeld joke.
Yeah,
I was going to say
it.
that's a comic book joke right there for you comic book fans.
At least we didn't talk about Captain America's enormous man boobs that Rob Liefeld drew.
So no, I'm not going on this. I'm not going on anything that's not tested.
Here's the other kicker, is that in between the Exploration Mission 1, or EM1, where they will send an unmanned Orion capsule up in the air, and the first crewed mission of the EM, or exploration module, will be 33 months, so nearly 3 years. So they're not looking at the first manned flight until 2021.
So again, the question is, does NASA do anything? Because I thought this was his whole thing. You're like, oh, SP came on here. And he's like, you know what? I guarantee, I put the personal SP guarantee on here that there will be more space exploration done that is government backed. I believe that that's exactly what you said, SP.
Steven, there might be more done by SNASA. Isn't that right, Director SP?
No comment.
Shh, it's a secret.
Secret NASA.
But the thing is, it's really cool that SpaceX with its Dragon capsule might actually accomplish the moon flight in December 2018. If I am remotely associated with that, I'm thinking very hard of wanting to actually go up in that capsule because I'm worried about the safety factor, basically. And if SpaceX does have a fatality anywhere in its space flight, it's going to severely shut them down for a while because they're not going to be able to launch any manned crews. And it might actually impact their on-man launches as well if it's something to do with the rocket and not the capsule. So there's a lot of risk involved in this. I know Jeff Bezos is throwing a lot of his Amazon money into Blue Origin. We just talked last week about Virgin Galactic. So there's a lot going on in the commercial manned flight business, but I'm glad that NASA is sitting back a little bit and being a little bit safer. So it's a risk game. And how much risk do you want to throw out? My concern is that if you lose one human life, then all of a sudden it'll shut down the program of whatever it is, whether it's NASA, SpaceX, Blue Origin.
Yeah, that's a massive concern with anything like this. And I think we saw that actually. Like, who was it that lost somebody? Didn't somebody die with they were near a test, weren't they, a couple years ago? I thought there was somebody who was a casualty of a test.
Yeah, the Virgin Galactic. We talked about that last week with the VSS Enterprise.
Yes, that is what I was thinking of. Yes. So anyways, I joke, I kid. Just glad to see NASA doing something again. I am actually happy about that. Even if the timelines are a little further out, I'm okay because we do have all this private stuff going on. And I think, I think that the private space sector is where it should be. I think that it's going to move things way further forward once we get some of these critical components locked down.
So, Steven, would you take a one-way trip to Mars on the Red Dragon?
Let me ask you this question. Are my kids behaving or not behaving?
Totally. Well, what's normal? They don't behave normally, right? So
right.
There you go.
Okay.
No, it's an 18-month ride with them in the backseat fighting.
And you can't turn the ship around.
What time of year is it? Because it's like, if it's January, I might be tempted to, because it's like, in the horizon, I've got Valentine's Day, then Mother's Day, like this is the kids' birthdays in the summer. Like, yeah, maybe I can get out of all that.
I will have to get back to you.
You could just be like, we're not on Earth. Gregorian calendar doesn't apply anymore, kids.
I was just going to say, I'm going to have to get back to you because I don't know what the season is for the Holman transfer for the window that the Red Dragon is slated for. So I'll have to get back to you. I know it's 6 months, so you're going through a couple of seasons while you're in flight.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to this next news point, which was one that was actually, it intrigued me for a minute when Haley put this in the document there, and then I realized, oh, I see what it is. Haley, what is this all about?
Well, Google Maps just sent out an update. This one is specifically for Android devices, and they've added Street View to the turn directions in your Google Maps directions on your phone, which if you're someone like me who has a tendency to get lost because you don't know where you're going and you need turn-by-turn directions at all times, this could be useful, especially if you're coming up to kind of a confusing intersection or maybe one of those smaller roads that's harder to spot until you get right to it. So this shows you the street view of that. The only drawback is that you have to actually click on each little map to get that turn-by-turn street view. It's not something that just pops up automatically as part of your directions when you're going. And there's some speculation that this is probably going to be coming to iOS soon, since the iOS and Android versions of Google Maps tend to be pretty similar.
I think it's a great idea. And why I think it's a great idea is because it gives you something to reference and look for when you're if you're really unsure. If you look at the map and you're like, this is something that I know there's going to be a super confusing area here, and look at all these intersecting roads, you can kind of prepare yourself a little bit better. I remember when what was it, MapQuest first came out. And it was like, what? We don't have to look at this map now. I was young, so I wasn't the one driving, but I remember it was like, my parents were very, very mind blown. It was like, and we could just sit there and actually print out directions from here to like a day away. It was insane.
I remember doing that before family vacations, printing off all the directions to get from our hotel to the things we were going to do on certain days.
Yeah. Exactly. It is crazy. And this is a nice evolution, in my opinion. They've got the data. Make it easily accessible for stuff like this.
I have a question for you, Haley.
Mm-hmm.
So what if it's nighttime? Does the Street View revert to nighttime, or is it daytime? Because things look different in the night than during the day.
Well, since most of the Google Street View cars are driving around in the day to get the pictures, I would imagine they do not have a night mode yet. But it's Google, so they will get it.
They apply a filter that using advanced mathematics, they can make it look like it's nighttime just for you, SP.
Yep, Google has developed a new technology that turns day to night.
There's actually just one stipulation, though, to unlock this here. It's that you got to get yourself on a one-way mission to Mars. And once you get there, they'll give you the access code.
Yeah, it would be a shame to miss that last turn into Mars.
Wouldn't it, though? So what I'd be really curious to see with this is how well this, I would love to have a car with, say, Android Auto in it, where you plug your cell phone in and it extends, Google Maps extends all your Android apps to your center console. Does this Street View bake-in work with Android Auto? Because if it does, game changer. Oh, well, assuming you can get a car with Android Auto right now, but still, game changer nonetheless, if you can bake it in so it works that nicely.
I can't wait to get my Apple car, because if it's anything like the Apple Watch, when I trade it in and get a new one, it's going to take like 3 weeks to update everything along the way.
Yeah. Well, and the maps that it launches with are going to be inaccurate, so it's going to turn you into a lot of buildings.
It's going to be SP gets his Apple car and he goes, why won't my car turn left? Well, because you're driving it the wrong way. With Apple, you can
You're
only
holding the
make
steering
right
wheel
turns.
wrong.
Yeah.
My vision is this: crash into the building. 3 seconds later, turn right now. That's my vision of it.
That's also possible. This
Aren't they
Apple
supposed
hate
to be
brought to you by StevenLovesAndroid.com.
Aren't they supposed to be self-driving cars, though?
Yeah, that's not quite there yet on any of the fronts.
Okay.
Anyways, back to the point at hand here. I think, again, very good change that Google has made, and really something that's overdue. Why did they not do it sooner? They have the information there. And quite honestly, Street View can be a pain in the butt to even find on the app regularly. So
yeah.
I'm glad that they did this. So cool. Thanks for mentioning that to us here, Haley.
Yep.
And before we get to our extra section where we got a couple of quick picks here, Chris, tell us how Timeless is not yet out of time.
I see what you did there, Steven. I see what you did there. So if you guys aren't aware, this week is the 2017 television upfronts. It's that time of year when networks reveal next season's programming for all the advertisers, and they also talk about the new shows they're coming to replace the lower rated shows that get the axe. So there was a lot of consternation and questioning of, was NBC going to keep the time travel show Timeless? Well, last week they canceled it, but this week it's back. So how did that happen? Well, pretty much fan outcry over the weekend in an influential USA Today poll asking fans which Bubble show they wanted to see returned, made it so Timeless ended up off the chopping block. According to NBC executives, the fans prompted them to change their minds on Saturday morning. Here's a quote directly from NBC chairman Robert Greenblatt, who said, I just lost my place. Sorry. We heard from fans in the outcry, and we woke up the next morning and thought, let's figure out how to bring it back. We went back to the drawing board in every way. The result is a second 10-episode season that will air sometime in 2018. So I didn't watch Timeless, but I like seeing this evolution of how this kind of thing is working nowadays. Because if you remember back in the day, shows like Chuck and like Community, they get canceled, and there's months-long efforts of fans going, we want our show back. Here's our Twitter hashtag about it. Here's our website about how we love it. Here we're going to mail fake beards to NBC to tie in with Community's darkest timeline, to say it's the darkest timeline that shows get canceled. So instead of having to take months to get a show brought back, it literally took like a day and a half of people getting angry on the internet. And all I can think is, why did this not work for Chuck and Community back when I was watching them?
So there's a reason why. Is Timeless... Okay, so there's a bit of important information with this. Is Timeless is not coming back in its regular season slot. It has been announced that it is coming back as a summer series. And things like Chuck and other ones which have had very long season or long history, many seasons and whatnot, you got to remember the cost is now higher because actors are going to be making money. They've probably renegotiated contracts. They're probably sinking more money into it because they've got so many seasons behind them. So with something like this, it's the first season, and maybe the budget was just there. Like, they looked at what the potential fan base was versus possible growth because it's going to be in the summer and less competitive. And it might have just fit into the right formula. But if you go, it is like something like, I'll give you Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I would guess, would never end up as a summer series because the budget would just be too high. They would have to pay too much money.
So a couple of things about this, Chris. First of all, you said you had hoped that this sort of thing would have happened with Chuck and with Community. It did happen with both of those shows. Fan outcries actually got those shows at least an extra season, if not more, with Chuck. So it did work a little bit with the fan outcry. But the other thing is, I think out of the four of us, Haley and I are the only two that actually watched Timeless. Stephen, am I right? You didn't watch Timeless?
I did not watch it, no.
Yeah. So, Haley, the cliffhanger at the end, do you think that was one of the reasons why NBC decided, okay, we'll go ahead and do this? Because that was just a dangling participle out there that if they had not done something to close that, they would have had a lot of fan outrage against NBC to the point where people would have maybe even started boycotting the network. I mean, really hardcore fans.
I think that's probably part of the reason why there was such a fan outcry is because of the way it ended. Like, it very much needs a handful of episodes to wrap up that storyline. I don't know that the cliffhanger itself influenced NBC's decision, but it probably influenced the fan base to put more pressure on NBC to try and get another season.
So what you described is very similar to what happened with the show on CBS. I think it was called Jericho, where at the end of the season rolls up, they canceled it. And I guess the final line was, guy goes, nuts. So the fan movement there was they mailed bags and cans of peanuts to CBS to get the show renewed, things like that. My point was how much more receptive.
Hold on. I was supposed to mail peanuts? I've made a very big mistake.
Yes, you made a very big mistake, Stephen. But my point on this more was not the fact that the fan outcry worked, but that it worked so quickly. That's what was really surprising, because it was months of effort for Community and Chuck in the past, and same for Jericho. Whereas here, NBC turned around in less than a week, based off the outcry. So it's kind of nice to see that the networks are listening now.
So that's the other point that I wanted to make with this article here is, do we believe that element? Because conspiracy theorist in me thinks that it was already slated likely to go to summer TV, because they, I don't know that NBC's had really any good summer TV series for a while.
Nope. NBC hasn't had very many good series at all in a while.
So you're saying it was a pro wrestling style work is what you think it was?
Yeah.
Totally.
Well, that'd be cool if it was. I don't know that it was. I mean, this is the world of TV.
I'm pretty sure.
I would almost believe they've gotten through like their pilots that they've got offered up right now, and they're like, we just don't have enough for next year.
Fair. I mean, the more important thing is they renewed
The
Good Place, and it's coming back for season 2. That's their best show on NBC.
It's true. That was a good show.
Yeah, very good show.
Well, anyways, in any case, nice to see them do this, and I actually would like to see more series do this. I really would, where if it's just not cutting it, just slide it to summer. I think it's a good move. It's a good way, if the budget allows it, to keep a fan base happy while also going and filling the gap with something that isn't garbage. So I think it's a good balance if the budget allows. We've seen the reverse quite a bit, actually. We've seen it before where summer TV has just done really well, and they're like, okay, well, get things going. It's coming back in January. We've had that happen.
So what's really strange is how good USA is at summer TV shows and like winter TV shows, these short season event shows, which is owned by NBC. So like they can get it right on USA, but they can't get it right really on the big channels.
Well, it's a thing for cable TV. I think it was maybe the FX network director that said before, they can't compete with the network shows during the regular season, but why would they try to? when they can just dominate, the winter break or the summer break? Why would they try and go head to head with bigger competition like that?
That's fair.
From a money standpoint, it doesn't make sense for them to try to do that.
Yeah.
Unless you're HBO or The Walking Dead, it's very tough to compete with network shows.
True. I do enjoy all talking shows, all Chris Hardwick talking shows. That's not true. Okay, let's go on to our extra section here. First off, SP, I know that you just were torn. You didn't get any sleep last night because there were so many good space stories this week. I have allotted 1.5. No, I'll give you 2.5 minutes to give us the rundown on all of space this week.
That's good because there was a ton of space stories this week. I did have a difficult time deciding which one to go with. So we're going to go really quick through about, 7 or so news stories. So the first one is scientists are pushing for another orbiter mission to Pluto. Late last month, 35 scientists met for 7 hours in Houston to discuss the basic blueprint and science goals of a potential Pluto orbiter mission. Such an effort will be built upon the knowledge gained during the epic Pluto flyby performed in July 2015 by the NASA New Horizons probe. Moving over into one of my favorite subjects, space telescopes. The James Webb Space Telescope, which we've already talked about on a SP Space Symposium, is set for a 100-day big freeze. The James Webb Space Telescope is ready for a nearly 100-day stay in the freezer. The mega telescope arrived at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston on May 7th, where it will undergo one last cryogenic test to make sure it can function in the intense cold of deep space. In another great space telescope that we've already talked about, the Spitzer Space Telescope has just passed 5,000 days in space. A NASA Space Telescope recently passed 5,000 days since the start of its mission in 2003, and it is still going strong. We've already talked about Virgin Galactic on this podcast, and guess what? Boom! There's a supersonic passenger jet coming by 2020, if you believe it. Richard Branson of Virgin Galactic has just partnered with startup Boom Technology, which we've already also talked about on this podcast before, to build a supersonic aircraft. The plane would zip through the skies faster than the Concorde jet or any other commercial aircraft today, Boom Technology said. I don't know if I believe that one, but we'll keep it in as a probable. And then for you sci-fi people out there, After the Flood author Kim Stanley Robinson described the future New York City underwater. She's got a new novel out called New York 2140, and it is basically with Manhattan lying partially submerged after a 50-foot rise in sea level. The story follows what ensues, and the article on space.com is actually an interview with her and how she came to her description of New York City in a future with climate change. And the last story that I ran into was a Popular Mechanics article interview with retired astronaut Clay Anderson about his biography, The Ordinary Spaceman. This article focuses on the selection process for NASA, which applies to American citizens. I was close, Stephen. I was close at 2 minutes, 35 seconds.
Stephen, what you need next time is the countdown from 24, so you get doo-doo, doo-doo,
No, start playing the Oscar music. Just play them off.
Yeah. Well, we'd have to pay for that, Haley, and we can't afford Oscar
Well, we can
music.
get our own music to play SP off.
I'm sure Incompetech's got something on there that we could use.
I know. Remember, I've run the GonnaGeek Awards before.
That's right. We're an award-winning podcast. How did I forget?
I know. It's terrible.
I'm going to get fired.
You are. No, I'm not going to do it. But
Did I win? They like me. They really like me.
Oh, actually, Moonlight won. I'm sorry.
No.
It was SP's version of La La Land. That's what it was. No, well, thank you very much for rounding that up. That is actually a very intense week compared to the usual. I know there's been weeks that you've been like, wow, I guess I'm not talking anything space, and it all happened in 1 week. That's crazy.
That's what it happens. And the last article is very important, by the way. If you do wish to become an astronaut, it details how to become an astronaut, including a link to the NASA page dictating what you actually have to do.
Awesome. And before we get to our final segment, Dr. Haley, please tell me why I should drink.
Well, some of you don't know this, but I'm fairly big into health and fitness, and I came across a study today about how to improve bone strength, and that is to drink tequila. Suck it, milk. There is apparently a component found in blue agave, which is used to make tequila, that increases the body's absorption of calcium and magnesium, which improves bone health. They tested this on mice, lab mice, not by feeding them tequila, which is a missed opportunity, I think, but instead by giving them the component directly from the agave. And 8 weeks later, the mice had synthesized 50% more osteocalcin, the protein that proves the production of new bone, and the diameter of the bones was also higher. So just until they prove it, I think everyone should be drinking more tequila, just to be on the safe side.
And
Doctor's orders.
And is this safe for children?
I would assume so. I mean,
Legal note, Haley is not a doctor, nor should be giving medical advice.
Also, don't give booze to your kids. But, if your kid won't drink milk...
So will this be in vending machines in your local high schools?
I would assume so. I mean, they come in, they talk about, bone health and teeth health and drink milk and brush your teeth. Why wouldn't we be giving the children tequila?
You can't suspend me, Mr. Johnson. I'm keeping my bones strong.
We can take our flasks into work and be like, we really do need our medicine.
I'll submit that to my extra benefits coverage. See if they'll reimburse me for that.
Now I don't need to drink my medicine under my desk. I can do it out in the open.
Well, that's a fascinating article. And seriously, stuff like this is always worth a read because, just like eggs and everything else, in another 6 months, it'll be different. But for now, ride that train solid. But let's go ahead and talk some cord cutting. Here we go. All right, so today we're going to talk cord cutting. There's a lot of different people doing this, and for those not familiar, cord cutting is where you attempt to get away from traditional ways of consuming TV and related TV entertainment. Maybe you watch the CW Arrow television show and you want to still keep watching that, but not necessarily pay for cable. Well, we're going to talk about some ways that you can do that so that you can keep watching the Starling Tribune, which is indeed a podcast on the GonnaGeek network. And in the latest edition of the Starling Tribune, titled Honor Thy Fathers, they're going to talk about that episode called Honor Thy Fathers. And you should check that out at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
I'm shocked.
All right, Haley, you have a lot of experience with this because you've been dabbling quite a bit over the last year or two, right?
Yeah. Well, I think I started like everybody does. You get your Netflix app and you get your Hulu app and you try to do the best you can with that. And for a while I was running, I had the Hulu app. I'm ashamed to say, I did get CBS All Access for about a month and a half. And
hey, how was Star Trek? Was it good?
I didn't watch it.
How was the Good Wife spinoff? Steven really needs to know about that.
I did not. I was not aware there was a Good Wife spinoff.
It was what replaced Star Trek since Star Trek's still not out yet.
I almost felt the need to start watching more shows on CBS to justify getting CBS All Access. But, they only had the shows that were on CBS.
You could have watched NCIS or NCIS LA or NCIS New Orleans. You could have watched any of those.
And you can watch CSI and CSI New York and CSI Miami and CSI Cyber, and there's probably another one I'm not remembering.
The problem
in the
is
back
the
catalog.
C and the S and the I buttons don't work on my keyboard, so I couldn't search for those shows.
That'd be a problem. It's a big problem.
Yeah, I basically couldn't watch anything on CBS. It was really sad.
You could watch Hawaii Five-0, sort of.
You can get, I think CBS All Access is like $5.99 a month, something like that. The Hulu app with ads is like $8.99 a month. And then I supplemented that with, you've got the CW app that's free. Comedy Central app is free. If you're someone like me who likes to watch a lot of news, the NBC News app is free. But when you're watching like that, you're getting a lot of your stuff a day after it airs. Maybe more than a day, depending on what the licensing contracts are with that particular show. So I started looking into these cable replacement apps that have started coming around. And I think Sling TV was probably the first one. It's been around for quite a while now. And at this point, I think they've probably got about the best channel selection that you can get, for the price. And they're the most a la carte one that's out there. So for starting at $20 a month, you get their orange package. $25 a month is their blue package. And then if you get both of those together, you save $5 a month. So for $40 a month, you get almost all of their channels. And then they've got a bunch of little $5, $10 add-on packs that you can get if you want more sports or more movie channels or something along those lines. The biggest drawback for Sling in particular is that they don't really have a DVR yet. They've got a beta DVR and then they've got the first look DVR, but it's not really available to all customers yet. Even with the DVR app that they have available now, you cannot record any of the Disney-owned channels or any of the Fox-owned channels. And this is true of almost all of these apps, is that you don't get live streaming local channels for NBC or ABC unless you're in a few select markets where the parent company actually owns their local subsidiary.
Okay, so I got a question for you. You mentioned
Yes.
starting off with a bunch of different apps, and how was that? Like for me, I'm pretty good at remembering what's on what station usually, and I got to say that can sometimes be really confusing as a Canadian because we have a bunch of Canadian networks that come and license different content, so it's not like an A to A thing. You might have one Canadian station that has some CBS programming and some NBC and so a variety of different things. But I am somebody who is generally pretty good at that. I feel like it would be very confusing though to try to think which app do I need to go to watch this show.
That wasn't as big of a deal for me as, like, if you want to watch news, you probably want to watch it pretty close to when it's actually airing. And I couldn't really do that. Like, I like to watch a couple of MSNBC shows, and I could watch them the next day, which is not really how you want to consume news. And there were also a few channels that I couldn't get their programming, like AMC, you can't stream for free without some sort of license. Some of the sci-fi shows, apparently Hulu doesn't have them anymore, because I know I wanted to watch The Expanse and it was not available on Hulu.
It's on Amazon actually now.
Is it really?
Is that where it is?
Amazon Prime has The Expanse.
Do they have them like the day after they air, or is it after the season wraps up?
I know they have season 1. I could do a quick look. I thought they had them on Amazon Prime because I remember hearing them talk about that on a cord cutting podcast I listened to.
I think you have to buy the episodes individually for season 2, though.
Probably yes.
Okay, so with all of these apps, do you find they're fairly similar, or do you find that they, like, stability-wise, are they the same?
I haven't noticed any big differences between the ones that I've tried with stability. There's a little bit of difference in channel selection on these. For example, Sling right now has the Viacom channel, so that's your Comedy Central, MTV, VH1, maybe Nickelodeon.
Yes.
They have those channels, and YouTube TV has the Viacom channels as well.
Those are two huge differentiators on a lot of the streaming services out there. Is Viacom's not on a good chunk of them, and it's something about the carriage rights they're still trying to iron out, and it's a pain in the butt if you like, especially Comedy Central content right now.
I know, like, what I'm really watching on Comedy Central is The Daily Show, and I can get that for free with the Comedy Central app.
True. And At Midnight is also on the Comedy Central app as well, which is the main thing I watch on Comedy Central.
Because you cannot get yourself enough Chris Hardwick.
No, I cannot. I want to be Chris Hardwick. I was named after him, actually. No, I wasn't.
Okay, so I got another question that's actually not directly app related. How have you found the transition to watching a day later?
I don't have to watch a day later anymore for most of my shows.
Sorry,
if
I
they have
meant
a DVR.
I meant when you switched originally, when you first started to do that. How did you find that?
For a lot of shows, it's not that big of a deal because just time-wise, I usually didn't have time to watch it the night it aired anyways, what with podcasting and all that stuff. But like I said, it was specifically news shows. And then there's a few shows where it's like, I need to watch those right away, especially if it's one I do a podcast about. So I needed to be able to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. pretty close after it aired. I would like to be able to watch The Flash pretty close after it airs.
I can see that. Now, Chris, you have some experience with this as well. So what's been your experience dabbling with the cord cutting?
So I'm what you could call a cord shaver at times. I dabble and I play around with those things, but honestly, Comcast has been the best deal for me, so I've stuck with them. But The biggest difficult thing for me, which they're finally starting to fix, has been live sports. And Sling TV, when it came out the gate and basically said, yeah, we've got ESPN, and all of these other sites are standing up like PlayStation View and DirecTV Now, YouTube Live, they're all getting sports content. They're getting the ESPNs, they're getting the local sports affiliates and things like that. So it's becoming a lot more practical to cut the cord. It's really just a matter of do the math to figure out what it's costing you to get your cable through whoever's providing it, and then figure out if you're going to lose a bundled deal, because that's how they're keeping a lot of customers. And then go and say, okay, if I get Sling TV, I'm getting 85% of the stuff I want to watch, but I'm saving $26 a month. Well, when I look at it that way, I can just go and buy those individual episodes of what I'm missing from Amazon or from iTunes or from Google Play or something like that. So it's really a matter of evaluating what fits your needs best and running the numbers. And for me, I haven't been able to make those numbers break quite right for me to say, okay, I'm ready to cut the cord, because Comcast does wicked bundles for me. I mean, to get my internet speed and my cable, I'm paying less than I would for both of them than I would for the internet by itself right now.
I can see that being tough. For me, I would have a really hard time with any delay at all. Like, you know, and I know it sounds like we've headed to a way that with Sling, at least in the States, we're not having to worry about that sort of stuff. But I just, like, I'll give you an example. This show here, we record this on Mondays at 5:45 Pacific time. My kids go to bed about an hour after we stop recording, and I'm sitting there just waiting to watch whatever's recorded today. You know, Supergirl, Gotham, all these other things on Monday, Better Call Saul. And I like that. I like being able to just go and watch something on the day it was intended to be released and watched.
Well, you can do that on most of these services now, especially like YouTube TV and PlayStation View. They have the DVRs. They're in place right now. So you just say, okay, one of my favorite shows is Supergirl. The other ones say The Flash and things like that. And it will record your favorite shows for you. So it could be Supergirl aired an hour ago. I was busy with my kids. Well, let me go pull up my DVR on PlayStation View, and boom, there it is. Or pull it up on YouTube. So most of these services now are basically just an online version of what you're seeing from Comcast. And you're even seeing Comcast is what I reference because it's what I have. They're doing the same thing now in select places. You can buy a streaming version of a Comcast cable subscription.
Mm-hmm. So one of the big differences between the different services is a few channels. I will also point out Hulu Live just launched, a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago now. They also do not have Discovery Channel, BBC America, or AMC, which are channels that I personally have shows that I watch on. So it's kind of a deal breaker for me. Also, another big differentiator is DVR. How does their DVR work, or do they even have a DVR? So Sling right now, their DVR is still kind of in beta. It's not really available to everybody yet. AT&T has DirecTV Now, which has no DVR at all. And really, it's just a add-on feature. You can get it real cheap if you've got AT&T wireless service, or if you already are a DirecTV customer. And I think they give you HBO for free if you get DirecTV Now.
And Showtime now, I think, too. I think they doubled them up.
But it's like you have to watch it as it's airing. They don't have a DVR, which for me I found is a real deal breaker because I do not watch shows as they are airing at all.
Yeah, they have on demand, I think, but their on demand isn't until next day. So that would be the problem you'd run into if you were Steven, which is, okay, it's my kid's bedtime. I've got to go take them off to bed. I've got to read them a story or whatnot. Oh, I missed half of Supergirl. It's not like you can start the recording over again. You would have to wait until it comes out on replay the next day.
On the on demand. And also, I think I mentioned this, most of these don't have NBC or ABC live streams. They've only got them as on-demand content. And it's got to do with the licensing with the stations, the local stations that carry the signals. They don't have those all worked out yet. And YouTube TV right now is only available in limited markets. Like, I was looking at it more today, and it looks like it's probably the best one out there right now. But you can only get it in Chicago, LA, New York, Philadelphia, and San Francisco.
Yeah, it's a glorified open beta for YouTube TV right now.
Yep. And if you do get that, you get YouTube Red with it for free.
You get YouTube Red content, but you still get the ads from YouTube with it. Yeah.
And Hulu Live, I feel like, is really still a beta program. It doesn't have any support on set-top boxes yet, so you can't watch it on your Roku. You cannot watch it on your Amazon Fire. You cannot watch it in a web browser yet. You can watch it on Android, iOS, Xbox One, and 4th gen Apple TVs.
That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous.
Well, you know why that's happening.
Why?
Because all the other people are out there already, so the writing's on the wall. If we don't put something out there now and try and get some market share, we're totally boned. It's a race now because so many people are getting into it.
Yeah, you do get the Hulu catalog with that, but I've been thinking about this for what I'm going to do next month. It is cheaper for me to stay on PlayStation Vue, which is $29.99 a month, and then get a regular Hulu package for $8.99 a month than it is to stay on Hulu Live, which is $39.99.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Is this something that you would recommend people go down if they're thinking about it? Because I know it's a lot of people do, Chris said, the cord shaving.
If you're cord shaving, then I think you're probably better off just adding on something like Hulu if you've got TV at home. But if you're planning on getting rid of your TV, if you're someone like me that doesn't watch sports a lot, and even if you do watch sports, it's getting better now. I think these are great apps. Like I said, PlayStation Vue starts at $29.99 a month. I think most of your basic cable packages, once you add on that you've got to rent their equipment, you're looking at more like $50 a month. And you can kind of pick which channels you want a little bit better with these. And the nice thing about this is if you are like, I know I'm not going to be watching TV next month. I know I'm traveling for work all month next month. You can, cancel your account for a month. You don't have to talk to anybody. You just go onto the website and you click the I don't want to do this anymore button and it's canceled. And then when you come back, you start it back up and you're good to go. You don't have to call customer service and have them hard sell you to keep your service for 10, 15 minutes. You can just pause it when you need to and start it back up when you need to. You can change, if your sport is out of season, you can go in there and take off your sports package. And then, when the season starts back up, go and put it back on.
Nobody within cable or any television service has ever tried to hard sell anybody ever, Haley.
No, never.
Any final thoughts on your cord cutting experiment? Well, I guess conversion.
Yeah, I will just say, bottom line, I think right now PlayStation Vue is offering the best service for the money. I think YouTube TV has the best potential service if they can get out to some more markets. Hulu Live has some work to do. I definitely need to be able to watch it on one of my set-top boxes. That's why I have a big TV with a nice sound system, is so I don't have to watch things on my phone all the time. Mm-hmm. But if they can get that figured out, get a couple more content contracts, I think they will look to be in good shape too. But right now, it's PlayStation Vue.
Wow. I mean, because that's so new, right? Like, that's just crazy to me.
And it's on basically all of your devices, I think, except Apple TV.
I'm not sure about Apple TV, but just to make it clear, it's called PlayStation Vue. You do not have to have a PlayStation to use it. I use it on a Roku app. I have it on my iPhone and my iPad. I have it on an Android tablet. I have it on an Amazon Fire. You can use it on anything.
Yeah. Now, one of the weird things people have run into with this, I just wanted to bring it up because it was entertaining to me, is some live content like award shows and things like that, or sports. If you're not watching on your set-top box at your house, say like you were trying to watch the Academy Awards or something, those were blocked for streaming because they had partnership agreements with other people for streaming. So you'd pull up ABC or whatever affiliate had it that night and be like, this is blocked because of another right we had. So that's one of the things you'll run into on some of these things, is they might have already sold the streaming rights to award shows or events like that. And then you aren't able to watch them. Things like the award shows, like the Oscars or the GonnaGeek Awards.
I just wanted to play you off. That's all.
I will also point out, I love PlayStation Vue, but you cannot like tweak your DVR settings to start a minute early or go a minute late. Every once in a while, it will cut off the beginning or end of your show, and there's nothing you can do about that. Also, these you can't. Not all of these streaming services are portable. Like the on-demand content is portable, but you can't be in a hotel somewhere and be like, oh, I know I recorded that show on my DVR. I want to watch it. That is not portable for anything except for YouTube TV. YouTube TV, you can apparently take with you wherever you go and continue streaming live and continue looking at the stuff you've got on your DVR.
Is there a limit to how many people can log in at the same time?
Yes, on all of these, they've got some sort of limit. So with Hulu Live, you get 2 screens with the basic package, and then you can give them an extra $15 to tack on unlimited screens. With YouTube, you can have 6 logins. So you can share the streaming account with 6 other people, and each person will have their own DVR, all of their own settings in there, their own personal login. So you don't have somebody else logging in on your account and messing with your settings. I I don't remember what PlayStation View screen number is, but I know Sling TV is 1 stream for orange, 3 streams for blue, and 4 if you get the orange and blue package together.
Yeah, that'll say in all of the sign up legalese and things like that when you're signing up just how many streams you can have on these things, but they're starting to get better about it.
Which is surprising considering how Netflix downscaled a while ago, but I guess they realize with this here, I don't know, the way I look at it is like with me in my house, with my cable provider, I will sometimes have 3 different TVs going at one time, right? Like, you know, it could be 3 different people in the house watching, so.
Sure.
Well, I want to say PlayStation View, I think was 5, but I didn't write it down. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Wow, that's
but
cool.
most of them, it's a number that you're not going to have an issue with since you can only use it on one house anyways.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so one last thing here. I want you to take 30 seconds here to convince SB to cut the cord.
Just do it. You're going to save so much money, dude.
That was easy.
Maybe, I mean, I said before, the PlayStation View has me intrigued, even at the highest price plan, the ultra slim plan. It's only $65, so that's
yep. And that's
benefit.
including premium channels like HBO and Showtime.
That's awesome.
90 elite channels, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
well,
so
and
Haley did
the biggest reason you're saving money with these is you don't have to rent additional equipment, which a lot of cable companies are going to hide those fees on that.
Yep. So Haley did a great job of giving an outline of what all these services provide and the different kind of channels and things that are on it. So I'm going to plug something, but it's not one of our things. But if you watch us on diamondclub.tv, one of the shows that precedes us on DCTV when we record live every Monday night at 8:45 p.m. Eastern is Cord Killers, which is generally on Channel 1 on DCTV. That's hosted by Tom Merritt and Brian Brushwood. And that's a show they've been doing for probably 4 or 5 years now on how to cut or shave the cord and their experiences with it. And they do a great job each week coming in and talking about new services, new capabilities that come out. And I'm having a real hard time talking about this as Steven is strangling himself on screen.
Well, you said cord killers. I'm assuming that's what it's about, is killing people with cords.
No, they kill the cords. The cords don't kill them.
Again, I have made a very, very big mistake.
So go check them out. That's Cord Killers on DCTV.
No, I gotta say, I always find this stuff very fascinating to talk about because we are so far behind with any of this possible cord cutting in Canada that I love to track this stuff between podcasts. And, you know, I do check out Cord Killers occasionally and see all this stuff. But we're a while away in Canada unless you VPN down to the States and everything. But I'm so happy to finally see the big movements happening and working out for people like you, Haley, in the States. Because once you all down there have it locked down, it's just a matter of time until up here in Canada we sort out our licensing mess. But thank you. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Respond. Hold on.
I was just going to say, well, we've almost got licensing figured out here. Just a few more decades and they'll have it straightened out.
Almost there. We're this close.
Yeah, well, anyways, Canada will always be behind the States, always. That's the way it's always going to be. We're always going to be behind the States. For the video viewers, I'm really working on my hand gestures. I feel it's authentic now with the hand gestures. But we are at the end of the show. Before we wrap up, we'll go around the table and just plug and promote and do whatever we'd like to do. And thank you, everybody who came on by. I know that we ran a little bit longer than usual. And so we just had a lot of really great topics. Really great topics that we wanted to hit up today. So I'll go ahead and just quickly start off by plugging Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., Crimson Comet, and that's there's a third. No, there's not a third anymore.
Yeah, there's a third. Gallifrey Public Radio.
Gallifrey Public Radio. I don't watch Doctor Who. You know that. I'm the worst. So I know, blasphemy. But please check out those 3 shows because Haley is the glue that holds them together.
I am part of the web of the incestuous GonnaGeek network.
By the way, Lauren's, I think, coming on here in a couple of weeks. If, you know, I say similar things to her, my apologies, but no, seriously, check out all of the different shows on the GonnaGeek network, including the ones Haley is on. Haley is a very knowledgeable individual, and I do very much enjoy hearing what you have to say. Haley, do you got anything that you want to plug or promote?
No, I think you just plugged and promoted everything. And I'm not going to make mom jokes because I made all those before the podcast. So
there's always room for a mom joke. Chris, do you have anything that you would like to plug?
I would just like to say, hey, thanks everyone for watching, and please make sure you go check out some of the other awesome shows over on the GonnaGeek Network, over at GonnaGeekNetwork.com. We've got a variety of awesome shows, no matter what your tastes are, so please go check those out. No, I'm not rising to the mom joke bait, Steven.
Well, Chris, that really sucked.
That's not the first time someone's told me that on a podcast.
SB, do you got anything that you want to plug or promote?
Yeah, one last time, just want to say congratulations to Kevin Blades and the Operation Pugcast for joining the GonnaGeek.com network. We look forward to your great content, and you can catch that at GonnaGeek.com.
But that is indeed the end of episode 192 of the official GonnaGeek.com show. I'm Stephen Jondrew, saying thanks for coming on here today, Haley.
And I'm Stargate Pioneer from GonnaGeek.com.
I'm Haley from Mini Podcasts on the GonnaGeek.com network.
I'm Chris, and I got a new shirt.
Bye.
Thanks for checking out another episode of the GonnaGeek.com show. If you enjoyed it, please give us a 5-star review in iTunes or a thumbs up on YouTube. We encourage you to send your feedback by email to show@GonnaGeek.com. You can find our entire archive at GonnaGeek.com/show. And while you're there, why not check out all of the other geeky content on the GonnaGeek Network? Want to chime into our live chat? Join us Mondays at 8:45 p.m. Eastern at www.geeks.live. The music heard on this show is by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. This show was produced and edited by Stephen Jondrew of GonnaGeek Productions. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you again next week.